Hi, I'm Kory Wells, the author of Sugar Fix from Terrapin Books, and I'm glad to be participating in their virtual reading series. Sugar Fix, not surprisingly, does have a lot of sugar in it and butter and all those good things, but it's really about, I think, the power of story and how, to quote my friend, the late poet and pastor Michael Williams, said, it takes more than one story to tell a story. And so, in sharing the first of just a few poems with you today, I'm going to share one of the first poems in the book called Untold Story. She was religious about reading aloud, Ann Lander's advice in the Free Press, Jell-O salad recipes in Good Housekeeping, letters and postcards from cousins and that one odd relation all the way in Australia. But neither of us ever said a word about the National Enquirer, which she'd pick up in the Winn-Dixie checkout next to the gum and chocolate bars, as if it were essential as milk and sugar. Back from the grocery on a summer afternoon, she'd start supper and I'd slip away to the overwarm sanctuary of her modest living room. Thin floral carpet, knotty pine walls, and a nubby mauve sofa where I, a sensitive and impressionable child, would spread the tabloid and kneel before it to absorb cover to cover and back again until my knees ached, the gospel of my disbelief. A moon landing hoax, an alien abduction, a two-headed motherless kitten nursing a domesticated squirrel, and of course, the secret lives of stars. What is it that makes us want to swallow a story whole? To think only one version can be true. We were not true disciples, but my grandmother tended the altar of narrative possibilities. This woman with an 8th grade education, who I never saw reading a book. Again, that's Untold Story, and thanks to As It Ought to Be magazine for first publishing that. Now, my mother, who's also a writer, would want you to know my grandmother really did read books, but of course, not in the summertime when I was visiting her. We definitely bonded a whole lot more over storytelling, and she really did read everything aloud, and I think her and my mother's storytelling infuses both the narratives of many of the poems that I've written and are in this collection, but also just my sense of story and storytelling. This book, though, while there's a lot of the past and history in it, also I think speaks to our present time, sometimes by re-examining history, but also sometimes just by reacting to more present day happenings. When I was a child in grammar school, in choir we would sing the I Lift My Lamp song, which is the Emma Lazarus poem that's inscribed on the Statue of Liberty, and I think was made into a popular song by Irving Berlin back in the day. So that's where I've got the title for this next poem. They taught us in school to sing of the huddled masses. And now we're an odd and tuneless lot, crowded and waiting for a bus or maybe some crazy ride at a rundown amusement park, tickets clutched in sweaty hands. It's cold, but we're somewhere south, or is it east? Everyone's trying to avoid eye contact or to preserve their personal space or keep the children hushed. None of it's working. We're overwarm. Our coats smell of stale grease and coffee. Someone in back lights up a cigarette, or maybe it's smoke from a cross burning long ago or yesterday. A hazy stench first rises, then settles heavier than guilt. A few people cough, and now someone hands me a baby, swaddled and so small I know she's starving, maybe even dying. And without a thought, I lift my shirt, uncut my breast like a dove before her mouth. My pale nipple has not nursed a child in 20 years. The body knows. The baby latches on, weakly at first, then stronger, her nose so close to my flesh, I worry about her every breath. She suckles, and the milk aches its way from deep within. I imagine it thick and gritty, but the body knows. Little as I have, it will be enough. Dark strangers. I know her parents when they come. I hand her over with a small, soft block of something white. Maybe it's goat cheese, or a too obvious metaphor for grace, or manna in new convenient packaging. Or maybe it's an eraser, the kind draftsmen use to fix an error, leave fragile paper clean. So these themes of hunger and desire run all through this book, in the form, I think, of family stories and how, in a greater sense, those are an American story and particularly a story of the American South. But also, there are a lot of love poems in this book, and I'll close by sharing one of those. And this has a long title, so I'm just going to read the title and go straight into the poem. He drove a 4-door Chevy, nothing sexy, but I'd been thinking of his mouth for weeks when he finally called me up and asked if I'd like to get some ice cream. I was full from supper and my thighs sure didn't need it, but I've never struggled with priorities. That Dairy Queen had gone downhill even then. Bright red logo faded like a movie star who's kissed away all her lipstick. But it still had a drive-in, and he knew how I was about nostalgia and sugar. This is how a place became our song. We parked under the sun-bleached canopy, and I leaned over him, pretending to read the menu. Then, at his rolled-down window, we confessed our desires more or less into thin air, which, now that I think about it, sounds a little like church. And believe you me, I'd been praying about him. How I wanted him. How, if I couldn't have him, I wanted to be free of want. Do you get that way sometimes? Where all you can think about is chocolate, chocolate, chocolate. Or in my case, man, that man. The bench seat of his Chevy became a pew, the space between us palpable as the early summer humidity. I kept telling myself, it's just an ice cream. But even then I knew, love is a kind of ruin. When those cones arrived, so thick and voluptuous, I almost blushed to open my mouth before him. Expose my eager tongue. Again, these are poems from my book, Sugar Fix, from Terrapin Books. I'm Kory Wells. You can sample more of my poetry on my website, KoryWells.com. That's KoryWeels.com. Thanks for listening.